Then the title is Autism, God, Me, and Melvin. So you see, after that traumatic childhood life, I actually did the similar thing. I married someone who was uh, verbally abusive, and at times it became physical. Well, when we had our first child, our son, um, he and he still is the joy of my life. And when by the time he got three, I noticed that he wasn't forming sentences, and I thought maybe because we were pretty much isolated, it was him and I, and by then had left Chicago and living in the state of California. I had no relatives there, and basically it was just my son and I. His dad worked long hours or whatever, and we spent all the time together. And as I started looking into it, I would take him to the doctor, and they said, "Oh, he's okay. If he's pointing at something, just have him to say the word." Well, he did all of that. He potty trained. He tying his shoes, walk, crawl. He did all of that. He just didn't have the language. So my thought was, oh, my son is deaf. So I took him to a clinic in California, and they tested him, and they said, no, he's not deaf. Well, then I said he need to be around children. So I took him to a preschool, and he was there for about 3 weeks. On the third week, the teacher came and she said, I think he has autism. I was like, autism? What's that? And so I went to the library to do some research on it. And I remember the librarian when I went in there, and I said, do you have any books on autism? And she looked at me and she said, you're too young to have an autistic child. And I said, well, I was told he has autism. So she gathered these books, and I read about it, and I was like, he didn't do those things like don't want to be held and touched. He loved for me to hold and touch him. So that started our journey in going to all these doctors, one doctor after the other doctor. Now this is in the 70s. Excuse me, there's no programs. And they kind of think they know about the disorder, but not quite sure. All kinds of things was coming up. Maybe it was the vaccination shots. The guys coming back from the Vietnam War, they were saying some of them have X amount of children that had autism. And his dad was in the Vietnam War, and he was around the Agent Orange. So I don't know. And our lives pretty much, Melvin and I was going back and forth to the doctor. And then I met this one doctor. Oh my goodness. And I'm in there. He tested Melvin and everything. And then he came back and he said, you're not to have any more children. I'm like, why? Because you see, he will harm the baby. No, he won't. Yes, he will. And he will never potty train. I said, he is potty trained. Well, he's not. He's going to stop. And he's going to be back in diapers. That man was so frustrating me. He kept saying all the things that Melvin couldn't do. And I'm like, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He went on and on and on until I had to stop him. I said, listen, the day you become God, then you and I can have a conversation. And I took my son and I walked out. And this is what encouraged me. When I went home and I laid him down to take a nap, and I fell asleep too. Well, later on, Melvin woke up before I did. I felt him. You know, if you got babies and you still want to stay in your nap, and here they are stirring around, he's like, if I be still, they won't get up because I'm tired. And he was moving around, and I was like, I'm just going to lay here with my eyes closed. And while my eyes was closed, he came up to me and gave me a kiss and said, this is my mommy. And when I opened up my eyes, he went back and he didn't say another word. And I said, he does understand. So I would cry and wallow on the floor, and I said, God, why me? Why did you do this to me? Why are you punishing me? And then I started searching in my mind, trying to figure out, what did I do? What crime did I do? Was it because of the little boy when I was a kid living next door and I threw rocks at him? I said, is it because when I had surgery when I was 14, I could have died. And I was in the children's ward, and there was this little baby that was in a crib. The baby had Down syndrome. But when I was growing up, there was another terminology that was not very nice. And they had this child in a cage crib. I had never seen nothing like that before. And I went up to him in curiosity, trying to touch, like, what is this? And I said, is that my crime? Is it because I got pregnant before I was married? I really thought God was punishing me and saying, why did you do that to me? And he let me waddle all over the floor and cried, and I could just see the Lord now. Okay, you done? And then when I stopped crying, he would give me ideas. This is what you're going to do. So I developed the program, and I actually started taping Melvin in all of our sessions. Melvin learned how to color, read. He did all of that. And I said, my son is going to school. Well, mind you, there was no programs. I put him in school anyway. And off Melvin went. And there went our journey. Because remember, I came from an abusive home. I was in a unsettling marriage. I never was the kind that in a bunch of crowd to do all this speaking. But somebody needed to be an advocate and speak up for my son. So the person was me. And it was like, God is in my life using my son to heal me from all those fears and despairs that I had. I didn't have time to cry and concentrate on that anymore, because it wasn't about me anymore. It was about my son. And that was the journey. And so the book is about our journey through the public school system and so forth, and my journey in healing, and watching Melvin grow up. And eventually, Melvin got his high school diploma. He took the state test. He passed it, even though there were some teachers that he can't do. And I didn't have a good relationship with all the teachers, because they would say, oh, here she come. Here come Melvin's mother. Because they didn't want to deal with me, because I would not take no for an answer. But when Melvin passed the test, one of those teachers came and she told me, that taught me a lesson, to stop judging and give every child a chance. And I got to give Melvin his diploma, because by then I was on the school board and I was an advocate for the children and the parents in the school district that had a disability. And I was the vice president of the school board. And so when my son walked across that stage, I cannot tell you how that felt. And me giving his diploma and shaking his hand. That was God who allowed all of that to happen as he started tearing down those fears. And having a child with disability will teach you unconditional love. and love that is so deep, it surpasses this facade that we have created. We have children, we say, oh, when they grow up, they're going to be this, they're going to be that, they're going to do this, they're going to have this, they're going to have that. And never do we think, what is God's plan for this child? Let me pray on that and say, let me help direct him into the will of the Lord. We don't do these things. We start talking about what we think the child and how perfect that child is going to be. And so that's what I learned with having Melvin in my life, and how Melvin loved everybody. And he told me, because when he started liking girls, I said, well, what girls? He said, Mama, I like all the girls. And I said to myself, uh-oh. I said, okay, that section isn't lacking in anything. Because he likes all the girls. So one day I went, and this is in the book. One of the teachers ended up being a real good friend of mine. And she called me, she said, girl, you must come down here quick and see this. Melvin was in the lunchroom, sitting in a chair with his feet up. One girl rubbing his head, the other one saying, oh, Melvin, he just sitting there. And I walked in and I said, excuse you, what are you doing? And he talking about, oh, mama. I was like, oh my gosh. He was, but the thing is, once the kids got used to Melvin being there, the first year was hard for him because he was rejected. But that second year, when they realized that the kindness, especially the girls of Melvin, they told me, even after I saw some of the girls he went to school with, they said Melvin was so polite. He would carry our books. He would open the door. She said, they would tell me, we'll never forget that. And so we forget, they're human. Yeah, they have a disability, but they have likes and loves just like everybody else. And they have hopes and dreams for themselves. And he had hopes, and he still have his hopes and dreams. He wanted to be a DJ. He knows every music that there is, from country to rock, even old music like Frank Sinatra. Don't ask me where he knows this from. I think God gave him all this music, because he even liked Elvis Presley. Come on now, I didn't listen to no Elvis music. I have to be honest. And I'm like, where did he get this from? He loves cowboy boots and cowboy hats, okay? And Jackie, anything all cowboy, he's in for it. Now, where did he get that from? I have no idea. But what I do know, that was put in him. And that's how he shares. When you talk about music, he's all on that, because he could tell you everything about every artist and when the music, the words to the music. And so that is his form of communication. And it's mind-boggling, and it's fun. He knows how to ski. He bows. He goes camping. He has a life. He has a job. He has a life. Now, mind you, the job doesn't pay that much. And unfortunately, for people with disability, it's like the system rendered them to poverty. It's only so much that the system is going to allow, which is a tragedy, because they're human too, and they have hopes, like I said, just like everybody else. And the hardest thing for a parent is to let go of your child when they get older. If you think, some parents like, oh, my son or my daughter is growing up and going off to college, and you're spazzing out. Think of parents who have adult children now. They're not little kids, they're adults with disability, and they're off in the world. And I cried because I thought, what's going to happen to him. Is he going to be safe? When he first started out, there was a couple of situations on a job site that I was like, oh my gosh, if I'm not careful, he can be accused of something that he hasn't even done. And there was this older lady that liked him, and Melvin didn't like her, and he would come and tell me what this lady was saying. And then she accused Melvin of trying to harass her sexually. I said, no, that's not happening. And I called the people, get my son out of that situation and put him somewhere else before I look at my son behind a bar. And I'm like, oh no, I can't let this happen to him. And he's a tall African-American male who cannot really verbalize and explain himself. That was frightening to me. I don't think on it so much because the Lord is teaching me I am his protector. Just like I protect you, I'm protecting your son, which is my son. He's my child too, just like you're my child. So when Melvin graduated from high school and we were in the kitchen and he said, I know something is wrong with me. And I didn't say anything. He said, but Mama, I'm a man and I need my own space. I said, oh Lord, I gotta let my baby go. And so we started looking for places for semi-independent living, and Melvin been in a semi-independent situation since, flourishing. So really, that's what the book is about, is our journey. And that was hard for me to write, memories, but I realized that was one of the best part and a part of my growing up in the Lord.